And if you want to do even more with interceptors and custom events, you can. We mentioned that the interceptor will run across the entire application anytime an event is fired. Well, what if you have an interceptor that you want to run only when some sections of your app are executed? You can restrict access on the interceptors using the event pattern option we see here in the documentation. It takes a regular expression, and anytime an event matches that regex pattern, it will run the interceptor, and everything else in your code will skip it. Here's what your interceptor looks like that we've seen previously, right? We just have a regular function, and it's named after, in this case, the preprocess event. And the new part we have is this event pattern bit added on the end here. It doesn't actually end with an open and close curly braces. That's just shorthand for the body of your interceptor. So here's our event pattern. In this case, it's going to look for any event in our admin section of our application, and it will run the preprocess event when those fire off as people click the application and do different things. However, if people are in, say, the user section or the manager section of the app, this preprocess event will not fire off. Same thing down here. I can use this syntax to say only execute this when things in the blog module are executed. Notice how admin up here was caret admin and then \dot. And for the module, it's caret blog and then a colon. So the difference here is the \dot versus the colon, and that's how you know the difference in a module versus an item in the admin package in this case. You can execute an event only when things in the blog module and the home handler are executed, so not just the entire blog module. Remember, a module is an entire Coalbox application. It could have many different handlers inside it. So in this case, it's going to only run when the blog module's home handler has something fire inside there, combining the caret syntax with the colon syntax that we saw earlier. And just we have the namespace for the module and then the namespace for the handler itself. You can also do things like this where you say only execute this handler for the blog, forum, and shop module sections. So we have several sections in our app that we do want the handler to run for, but none of the other sections. You just pass in this case, 3 different section names in a set of parentheses separated by that pipe character. And that will tell Coalbox anytime the blog handler, forum handler, or shop handler has a method inside it that runs, go ahead and use this preprocess interceptor as well. But if we have, say, an admin handler or a user's handler, since those are not listed in the set, go ahead and skip this handler, or this interceptor rather, and don't run it. In an earlier video, we used write output from within an interceptor just to make it obvious that the interceptor was indeed running. But we also mentioned that this was not a good practice. If you have to create some output content from inside your interceptor, the better way to do it is to use the buffer variable that's passed in as an argument, and it works like this. You clear the buffer, as we're doing on line 12, or line 11 rather, to make sure there's nothing inside it. Then just call the .append method and start sticking content inside there. The buffer can contain plain text or HTML, whichever you need. This way is a tiny bit more typing than just by calling write output like we did previously, but you're letting the Coalbox engine collect all the output and handle it on Coalbox's terms rather than outputting things directly from inside an interceptor, which breaks encapsulation and causes some other design problems. So doing it this way is a little bit more typing, but it's a more object-oriented, correct approach. Here you can see the original version of our post event that ran in the earlier video. And here's the new code we have in our post event. Notice that I'm using the .append method and I'm passing in some HTML here to format the post event text a little bit more cleanly. It'll just be in bold print on its own line in a paragraph tag. Here's the version of the code that ran in the previous video, and here is that exact same thing running with our new syntax using the .append method. And you can see that the post event text still appears at the top of the page, but it's now in bold print because it's got that HTML coming with it from inside that .append method that we just called. So it doesn't change the physical location of where your content appears on the screen by using the .append method. It just does things in a more object-oriented Coalbox way, but you also get the benefit of using HTML and having a little bit more control over just the object-oriented design of what happens in your app, and you let Coalbox take care of doing the Coalbox things and rendering your content out properly. What if we've got an interceptor that contains a bunch of internal business logic of some kind, maybe including several slow-running queries or writing content out to a big log file on the server? That interceptor could be really expensive to run and would slow down the application every time it's called. You can actually run interceptors asynchronously to get around that problem, and it's pretty easy to do that. Now, what's not easy to do is show you this code running in an asynchronous fashion while I'm just one person running code on a local development laptop. So you'll just have to take my word for it that this runs, but it does work correctly, I promise. You call the announce interception method that you see on the screen just like you did before. You pass it the name of your event, like upload photo or post event, the things that we've seen earlier in the examples, and you give it one new argument, async all equals true. That's it. That's all you have to do to make your interception run asynchronously. You can get more granular with it by also using the async priority option and specifying the priority level of the thread that it's running in. You don't have to get that detailed with it though. That's an optional thing really that comes into play more on super high traffic websites where you have to squeeze every bit of performance out of them as possible. You could also do things like tell Callbox to say, run the interception, but multi-thread all the interceptor CFCs that are listening to that event. So if you've got, say, 3 interceptors that run when the post-event method is fired, Callbox will spin up 3 separate threads and run them all in parallel if you want. Pro tip, whether it's Callbox, interceptors, or just straight CFML, dealing with threading can be pretty tricky, and it can be a challenge to track down bugs in that kind of situation as well. I would definitely recommend putting the stuff in the use it when you need it category. For most applications, just using regular interceptors will probably do everything you need. But when you're ready for more advanced features and you think you may actually get a benefit from using asynchronous technology, then go ahead and check this out. And you can read more about asynchronous interceptors here at callbox.ortusbooks.com when you get to that point.